Welcome back to another episode of Swamp Stories. For this episode, we cover a very interesting topic. But before we get into it, make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you're new. You can also follow the Instagram page as well. So let's get into it. If anyone has been to rural California or rural Nevada, you know these places are nothing like the rest of their states. They have a totally different persona, far from avocado toast and low-fat lattes. So for a second, imagine yourself in a small town like Virginia City, Nevada. No, maybe that's unrealistic, so let me start over. Instead, imagine yourself driving from the Bay Area up to Lake Tahoe. You get past Sacramento and now you have about an hour left to go. But all of a sudden you get hungry, so you end up pulling over in Placerville, California. You sit down at the first restaurant you see. So here comes the waitress. She smiles while holding on to her last two teeth and welcomes you to Placerville. Anyways, you finish your food and head for the door. You look up and see a large group of tatted and bearded men on motorcycles. And before you know it, they storm past you smelling like stenching body odor and booze. You may think nothing of it and assume they're just middle-aged men having some fun together. And that could very well be the case, but you could also be completely wrong. You could be in the presence of one of the wildest underworlds in America. Either way, these are the kind of people that we're dealing with in this video. But don't think that Placerville is the only example. This kind of world exists all over, from Lawlin, Nevada to Victorville, California. So I hope that gave you an understanding of the vibe for this video. But in order for everything to make sense, let's head back to 1945. After World War II, many veterans came home struggling. They had seen and been through so much during the past decade. On top of this, many of them came home lonely, without a sense of family or camaraderie, just left to sit alone and think about everything they had been through. So in order to solve these two problems at once, groups of veterans came together and started motorcycle clubs. Although there is no way of proving this, it's casually accepted that one club came first. And that takes us to Bloomington, California. Located just west of San Bernardino, Bloomington was a small, poor town, and kind of still is. And here is where a small group of motorcycle riders joined together to start PBOB, also known as the Pissed Off of Bloomington. The idea was to be fierce, somewhat rowdy, and to use this as an escape from the confines of society. And after them, a handful of other motorcycle clubs formed as well. The guys were definitely rebellious, but many will say that they weren't doing anything except riding around. So because of that, no one really had a problem with them. Yet. And that takes us to July 3rd, 1947. Starting in 1930, the Northern California city of Hollister hosted an annual motorcycle racing event on July 3rd and 4th. Thousands of people would come from all over the West Coast to watch and show off their bikes. At the time, Hollister's population was only 4,500 and they had a grand total of 7 police officers. That meant that the entire event was patrolled by 7 people. But at the time, this wasn't a problem because things were always peaceful. However, 1947 would bring a new presence to Hollister. After the event, all of the motorcycle clubs congregate at the local bars and restaurants. And for whatever reason, after a while, everyone began bumping heads. The legend says that the Market Street Commandos of San Francisco got into it with PBOB, the classic NorCal versus SoCal rivalry, even in 1947. Well, unfortunately, this set the tone for the rest of the night. Complete chaos ensued and the reckless behavior would not stop until the morning of July 5th. That was 2 straight days of madness and only 7 officers to mitigate. They completely trashed the town of Hollister and the whole thing became national headlines. Although the situation was crazy, the newspapers vastly exaggerated and scared civilians everywhere. This was the mainstream world's introduction to motorcycle clubs. Nothing but negativity attributed to their way of life from the very start. And it only made it worse that 2 months later on Labor Day, the same thing repeated itself in Riverside, this time between PBOB and a local rival called the Outlaws. The Riverside event made a lot of people upset with motorcycle clubs once again, even to the point where the Riverside sheriff called them out for being rebels. In response, the American Motorcycle Association responded by saying that 99% of the members are good people. The statement was laughed at by everyone, even the bikers themselves. And this is when they started calling themselves the 1%ers to represent the 1% who aren't good people. And this identity caused a lot of issues because the clubs became completely lawless. It got to the point where some members were fed up, even a top leader of PBOB. That would be a man named Otto Friedli. Otto was fed up with the direction that PBOB was taking, so he quit the club and started his own. On March 17th, 1948, Otto met up with a group of friends to organize their own motorcycle club. They sat down to find a name, and a man named Arvid Olsen made the first suggestion: the Hells Angels. At first, everyone was skeptical, but once he explained the origins, they all caved in. While serving in China, Arvid's squadron was nicknamed the Hells Angels, and he wanted to recreate it in America. So with this identity, the guys went out and recruited some members. Initially, they made Fontana, California their headquarters, just west of San Bernardino. While over the next 10 years, the Hells Angels started spreading all over California. And that takes us to 1953. This is the year where the Angels began expanding up north. It started with a San Bernardino member named Rocky Graves. In early 1953, he moved up to San Francisco and established the Frisco's Hells Angels. In order to do this, he went around the city's lower end neighborhoods such as Crocker, Amazon, and the Excelsior, and that's where he recruited. By the end of the year, he recruited 13 full-time members. And just a couple of years later, the same thing would occur across the bridge. That takes us to a man named Sonny Barger. Sonny was born in the town of Modesto, but at the age of 4, his mother left the family and his father had his own battles. So as a kid, he moved in with his grandmother in Oakland. There, he lived a rough upbringing and ended up dropping out of school at the age of 15. Well, long story short, his teenage years were wild, so he knew he needed some sort of structure. So in 1957, he decided to start the Oakland Hells Angels. Sonny was fierce and was definitely a problem starter, so many of the Southern California chapters did not like him at first. Rumors say that at the initial Angels meetings, he got into it with plenty of Southern California members. However, because of this, the founder Otto Friedli started to like him. He knew right away that Sonny had leadership qualities and he loved his straightforward attitude. So the next year, Otto caught a case and ended up appointing Sonny Barger as the leader of all the Hells Angels. This meant that everyone who didn't like him now had to follow his orders. However, this may not have been a good thing because the next decade was awful. By 1965, they were no longer just a rowdy motorcycle club. Now they were knee-deep in the underground world. It all started when Sonny Barger found a new way to get rich. I won't say what it was, but given the 1960s, I'm sure that you can imagine. So the Angels were no longer riding around for fun. Now they were transporting things for Sonny Barger. You'd think that he would try to keep his operation low-key, but that was not the case. Every member wore a leather vest with the Hells Angels logo in the middle. On top, you have the club name, and below you have California. This is known as a bottom rocker. It may seem silly, but having California on the bottom rocker was a big deal. They were the only motorcycle club to have it, and they made sure to keep it that way, to the point where no one would be foolish enough to try to put it on theirs. Or maybe not. And that takes us right back down to Southern California. Right next to East LA, you have a small city called Montebello, and this is where a new motorcycle club popped up in 1969. The Mongols Motorcycle Club, named after the Mongol Empire of the infamous Genghis Khan. That's because their mission from the start was to conquer California. Their vest initially just had their logo with Mongols above it, no bottom rocker, and their primary operation was moving Jesse Pinkman, if you know what I mean. On top of this, they began getting involved in all sorts of different underground activities. The Mongols were truly no one to mess with since the very start. Well, all of this was good and dandy with the Angels. We stay in our lane and you stay in yours, mutual respect. However, that would change in 1977, so let me set the context. In 1976, a Frisco Angel named Chester Green got into a disagreement with his fellow members. He got so angry that he decided to renounce his membership and move down to LA. And there he joined the Mongols and told them how weak and pathetic the Angels really are. So this made the Mongols want to try them whenever they cross paths. April 1977, Anaheim, California. While at a swap meet, the Mongols run into the Angels for the first time. Instantly, they all freeze up. The Mongols surround the Angels, and that's when the Angels realize that they're outnumbered by at least 30. So at this point, they kinda wanna run because that's the smart thing to do. But according to the rules and upholding the Angels' reputation, they have to take what's coming. So one of the Angels walks up to the lead Mongol and BAM! Chaos ensues. Obviously, the Mongols came out victorious, but the Angels gained their own respect for standing up. But because the Angels technically initiated, the Mongols wanted to send a message. So the Mongols leader tells the Angels that a big surprise is coming. Here's what it is. The Mongols decide to add a California bottom rocker to their vest. This was the Angels' signature attribute that they made clear was only for them. And that takes us to Labor Day 1977, 5 p.m. A pack of Mongols are riding up Highway 5 in their brand new vests. They're on their way to a Labor Day biker gathering where they intend to show off their new bottom rocker. However, little do they know 2 Angels are following them on I-5. This incident shocked the Mongols because the Angels took the rivalry to a level they never expected, all because of a stitching on the back of a vest. 3 days later, the Mongols gather around the cemetery to show their final respects to Redbeard and Jingles. Oddly enough, a San Diego Angels member is there as well. He leaves a big bouquet of red and white flowers and calmly walks away. The Mongols were either too stunned to do anything, or they thought that it was an apology and a sign of respect from the Angels. Unfortunately, the latter was not the case, and the Angels made fun of the Mongols for letting it happen. From this moment on, the rivalry has been non-stop, but because the motorcycle clubs don't have official locations and are always on the go, it's not an everyday occurrence. However, countless incidents have taken place all over the West Coast, from inside the facilities to freeways, restaurants, and even casinos. So let's fast forward to 2002. This is when the rivalry was at an all-time high. It was going down anywhere and at any moment. April 27th, 2002. It's a hot Saturday in the small town of Lawlin, Nevada. Thousands of bikers come down for the annual Lawlin River Run. This is an event for bikers that draws 50,000 people a year. So this means that everyone is there, both Mongols and Angels. Well, after the show, a San Diego Angel named Christian Tate doesn't want to stay the night. So by himself, he starts heading back to San Diego. He drives down I-40, which is painfully boring. There is absolutely nothing along this freeway. Anyways, as he's heading down the freeway, he pulls over in Ludlow, California to get gas. But little does he know, someone has been following him the whole way. So as he approaches the gas station, the man pulls up. Bang! This incident shook everyone, and here is where the story gets dicey. Because this occurred in the middle of nowhere, chances are he wasn't discovered right away. On top of this, because he was alone, who would have told the fellow members in Lawlin what had happened? Also, did cell phones exist in 2002? I don't know. But either way, the rest of the night would be wild. 2 a.m. A local police officer informs the Angels that a group of Mongols are surrounding some Angels inside of HELLS. So the Angels rush inside to help them out. And here is where things go crazy. Bang. This situation got completely out of hand, so the Lawlin police, who have nothing else to do, spent weeks investigating. They couldn't decide whether the Christian Tate incident had anything to do with the events at 2 a.m. But eventually 7 Angels went down and so did 6 Mongols. However, an Angel named Frederick Donahue decided to go on the run. 6 years later, he was pulled over in a small town and now he's doing life. This whole situation was all over the mainstream news. Many people didn't know this biker world existed, and especially for things like this to ever occur. Well, just when you thought this story couldn't get crazier, another major incident would take place. After 5 more years of chaos, one incident stands out more than any other. September 2nd, 2008. San Francisco's Angels chapter is led by a man named Mark Guardado, also known as Papa Frisco. Well, on this Tuesday night, Papa Frisco was out in the Mission District on 24th and Treat. He's getting drinks and having a good time with some friends. But that's when a Mongol named Christopher Ablett walks into the bar. Bang! This was a big deal, to the point where the FBI wanted to put this all to an end. Operation Black Rain. 160 search warrants and 110 arrests. From California to Oregon all the way to Ohio, they wanted the Mongols gone. They're still around, but Operation Black Rain definitely did a number on them. Not to mention that they have a wild rivalry with the Southsiders, which I can cover in a whole separate video if you guys want it. Well, on the other hand, the Angels have expanded like crazy. 467 chapters in 59 different countries. But despite all these chapters, there are only between 3,000 and 5,000 members. You may be wondering why. It's because becoming an angel is extremely difficult. It's like getting into Harvard but for the underworld. That's because the angels have some crazy requirements. For example, you have to be close friends with an angel for 5 years before applying. Then, in order to be admitted, there's a vote by all the leaders to decide if you're fit to be an angel. They want you to show loyalty and an understanding of what kind of sacrifices being an angel entails. You always have to back your fellow brothers, no matter what. Well, in recent news, just a couple months ago, former Angels leader Sonny Barger passed away of old age. His funeral was actually held in Stockton just 10 days ago. It prompted San Joaquin's sheriff to warn about potential issues, but thankfully everything went well.
Thousands of motorcyclists revved their engines into Stockton for the funeral of HELLS Angels founder Sonny Barger.
Very, very nice man. Nothing but love for him. And
very scary at first. I was nervous, to be honest, but hey, today's been great.
nothing like that going on. I came up here with open arms and ready to, just show my condolences.
A day to honor history and focus on what unites them.
From the looks of it, the Angels have changed their persona. It seems like the brotherhood and the love for riding motorcycles are their main focus. I can personally say that I've only seen the Angels once in my life. It was years ago in Reno at a motorcycle event, and I thought that it was the coolest thing ever. Clearly, I didn't know what they really had going on, and maybe you didn't either. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Also, let me know what you want to see next. Peace!